I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governor should come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Hey, what do you say, friends and neighbors? Here we go. Wednesday, April 22nd, and the special edition of the Bill Press Show for this Wednesday. Here in our nation's capital is where you find us in our studio on Capitol Hill. We are reaching out to you on Free Speech TV nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKRTV. Thank you so much for joining us. Finally, Senate Republicans have agreed, Mitch McConnell's agreed to have a vote on the confirmation of Loretta Lynch as our next Attorney General. The vote will be tomorrow on Thursday, but the damage is already done. This is too little, too late. She will be confirmed, but Republicans have already shown, after making her wait 165 days as of today, for a vote, they've already shown what they think about women and what they think about African Americans. Up in Boston, the penalty phase of the trial for Johar Tsarnaev began yesterday. Prosecutors demanding the death penalty, but the jurors we don't know, residents of Boston are split, and so are the families of the victims. Some of them urging the death penalty, some of them saying no, the death penalty is wrong, even for him. Life in prison without parole is the better choice. President Obama giving an interview last night with Chris Matthews of MSNBC on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the so-called TPP, which he insists is a good trade deal, but Democrats are split. Even Hillary Clinton yesterday saying she's against any trade deal unless it produces new jobs. Today, the president goes down to the Everglades to talk about climate change, one of the great natural wonders of the world, and one of the first to be lost with rising sea levels unless we do something about climate change. And the big easy ain't so easy anymore. As of midnight tonight, you won't be able to smoke in bars in New Orleans. What took them so long? Lots to talk about today. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Welcome to this Wednesday edition of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Happy Earth Day. Yeah, if we love the Earth so much, why are we destroying it? Hello, everybody. It is a Wednesday, April 22nd. So good to see you today, and we thank you for waking up with us. We thank you for tuning into us. We thank you for joining us here on the Bill Press Show. We are here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, covering the news of the day, whatever's happening here in Washington. Oh, my God, they finally scheduled a vote on Loretta Lynch for tomorrow, 165 days later. Tomorrow it will be 166 days. So there's a little bit going on here in Washington, D.C. We'll tell you all about that. Plus, President Obama going out yesterday, again last night, with Chris Matthews from MSNBC, and stumping, trying to push and build support for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, his new trade deal. So whatever's happening in Washington, we'll tell you about around the country and around the globe. That's our job, your job. Tell us what you think about it all. 866-55-PRESS. Of course, one other big thing around the country. Up in Boston, the penalty phase of the trial of Boston Marathon bomber Johar Tsarnaev underway yesterday in very dramatic fashion. Want to get your take on that today as well. All of that coming up here on this Wednesday from Washington, D.C. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Tell us what you think about it. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Team Press in place, Peter Ruckburn and Elisa Murphy.
Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Happy Wednesday.
All right, Wednesday. Here we go. A videographer,
Indeed.
Cyprian Bolding there. So we got the audio and the video side of the team. Cyprian keeping us looking good on free speech and on TawkrTV. Our Nats, they're struggling to get up to 50%, but they've looked good the last few games.
Pulling together. They're starting to get some of their people back on the roster.
They looked good Sunday when Carol and I were there, and then they went off to St. Louis up against the Cardinals last night. Not a high-scoring game. It was 1-0 for a long time until what's his name? Junel, is that a pronunciation?
Junel
Escobar. Junel Escobar steps up to the plate. Here's what it sounded like on WJFK.
Swings and hits one to left field deep. Holiday going back to the warning track, to the wall. It's over. Junel Escobar wins and he puts it in the Cardinal bullpen.
This is the crowd going nuts. This is right around the corner, right down the street. That was here in D.C. last night.
That was in D.C.?
That was in D.C. last night.
They were here last
yes,
night.
indeed.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't hear that. I'm surprised it didn't wake you
I am
up.
too, because Carol said they were in St. Louis, so I thought that but she usually knows. She was watching the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had the wrong stadium then. Yeah. But at any rate, that crowd did go. I was wondering why the St. Louis crowd was going so wild.
Yeah, it was here in D.C.
Yeah, D.C.
Love a walk-off home run, man.
Final score, 2-1.
Bottom of the 10th, too. That's a long game.
Bottom of the 10th?
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Anyway.
That's right.
That way they can win. Hey, coming up today, Congressman Sam Farr from California will be here in studio with us. We'll also be visited in studio by Larry Cohen, the president of the Communication Workers of America, one of our great labor leaders in this country. We'll start off this hour, not start it off, but later in the hour, talk to David Jackson, covers the White House for USA Today. All of that coming up, but first.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. You know, the Nationals were
Cocktail
only
time.
part of the D.C. sports story last night.
Oh.
D.C. sports teams went 3-4-3 last night. We mentioned the Nationals won.
What's that mean?
We won. We had 3 big games last night.
Yeah.
We won all 3 of them. I'll explain.
3 for 3. Got it.
3 for
Okay.
3. 3
Yeah.
for 3. The Capitals were playing the Islanders in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they won in overtime. 2-1 is the final there. That series is tied 2-2, so they're all tied up.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, up north, the Washington Wizards are taking on the Toronto Raptors, and they took a commanding lead in that series. They are up 2-0 after their win, 117-106. So the Wizards are cruising to their first-round playoff victory, we hope. And then the Capitals
So
stayed
the Nats
alive.
won, the Caps won, and the Bullets won.
That's right. There you go.
Right.
There you go. It's
I
pretty-
saw a guy on the subway, on the metro, yesterday, wearing a Bullets.
A Bullets, yeah. I love the
Cap.
Bullets still have
Retro.
the old Bullet stuff. Yeah.
He was a young guy, but he had a Bullets cap on.
Yeah, you can still get them out there.
Can you?
It's not licensed by the NBA, but yeah, you can get it. You can get it. Congratulations to Iceman from the X-Men. He is gay, according to Marvel Comics. He's one of the original X-Men members. He showed up in the very first iteration of the X-Men, and in a recent comic book, the all-new X-Men number 40, which is coming out today, he makes it clear he is a gay man. So, congratulations, Iceman.
So he's coming out of the comic closet?
Out of the comic closet. Now, Marvel had announced that they had another openly gay superhero, a guy by the name of North Star, who's not as well known as Iceman, back in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he's out of the closet. So congratulations, man.
It's happening all over.
I'm telling you, this is exactly what Rick Santorum warned us about.
I know.
When we legalized gay marriage, now our comic book heroes are going to be gay. The New England Patriots offensive tackle Nate Solder has a lot of balls. In fact, turns out he told a story to ESPN to spread awareness of testicular cancer. He was diagnosed with testicular cancer last season when the Patriots were playing football, and he continued to play. He went ahead and he got treatment for it. He's doing better. He's on the rebound. But he played like half the NFL season knowing he had testicular cancer. We continue to wish him all the best, Nate Solder, but he's getting better. It's all good.
Yeah.
He's raising awareness for testicular cancer.
Yeah, good for him. All right, thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. We start off today with an issue that has really ripped Boston apart and has got a lot of people talking all over the country. We wanted to talk about it this morning. The penalty phase of the trial started yesterday of the lone surviving marathon bomber, Johar Tsarnaev, 21 years old. He was 19 when he and his brother planted the bombs at the finish line at the Boston Marathon. An absolutely callous, brutal, cold-hearted act of murder. 4 people killed, 260 injured at that time. And there is no doubt, he was found guilty on all 33, I think it was, counts. And there's no doubt of his guilt. In fact, as we know, because we've talked to our friend Holly Bailey up in Boston several times during the trial, even his defense attorney started out by saying, yeah, he did it. Yes, he's guilty. But the question is, and the only remaining question is, so he's found guilty, first phase of the trial. Now the second phase of the trial, what should happen to him? And there's only one question: should he get the death penalty? This death penalty has been illegal for decades in Massachusetts for state crimes. This is a federal crime. He's being tried by federal prosecutors. The death penalty, of course, is still legal in federal courts, in the federal system. So the question is, should Johar Tsarnaev get the death penalty, or should he receive life in prison without parole? What do you think? 866-55-PRESS, 866-55-77-377. Interestingly enough, first of all, CBS News reported last night that 60% of Bostonians oppose the death penalty. across the board oppose the death penalty. And the victims and the families of the victims, interesting enough, have been split or are split on this issue. Here are a few of their voices. Liz Norden is a mother of 2 sons, each of whom lost a leg in the bombing. And she says, yes, indeed, he ought to get the death penalty, and I believe that now more than ever.
I want it more now than before. You know, I just think he's a monster.
Well, he is a monster. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. Nobody's going to argue with that. So she's saying, yes, the death penalty to bring her closure, I guess, or revenge, whatever the motivation is. Brayton Shanley himself was one of those severely wounded in the bombing. He says, no, this is not the answer.
The death penalty is unnatural, it's outdated, and it's ineffective. So we stand against that futility, the wrongness of that.
Rebecca Gregory, also, again, another victim, weighs in, saying, I believe, again, she is negative on the death penalty.
It's just bringing up all of this stuff and having to relive it every single day, and there's no good that can come out of that.
No good that can come out of it. So, again, what do you think? 866-55-PRESS. If you were on the jury, you know the guy is guilty. You know what he did. You know also that he has shown no remorse, none. In fact, the prosecution opened up the penalty phase yesterday in very dramatic fashion, showing a picture of the young Tsarnaev 2 years ago, sitting in the holding cell, ready to be questioned, I guess, about his actions after they had nabbed him, found him in that boat, remember, after that couple of days search of Boston, where Boston was locked down for a couple of days. At any rate, there's a surveillance camera in the holding cell, and he looks at the surveillance camera, jeers at it, and flips the bird at the camera.
What a nice guy.
And they've got that's the photo that they showed the jury yesterday, kind of to start off. Also, yesterday, the prosecution brought on, again, several victims, including one woman who lost both legs in the incident, just to talk about her experience and really trying to convince the jury that you may not like the death penalty, but this is the one time you got to go for it. 866-55-PRESS, what do you think? I got to tell you my position on it. First of all, there's no doubt, I would agree. If anybody deserves a death penalty, he does. If anybody went out of their way to get the death penalty, showing, again, committing a cold-hearted murder, a callous act, showing no remorse, knowing what he was doing it deliberately. This BS that his brother brainwashed him into doing it, I don't buy for a second. And again, neither did the jury. So, yes, he certainly deserves a death penalty. Should he get it? I would still vote against it. I mean, I think the point is, if you're against the death penalty, you're against the death penalty, period. You don't make exceptions for bad guys. If you're against the death penalty for the right reasons, and there are many reasons to be against it, you're against it. No exceptions. You can't have it both ways on the death penalty, in my humble opinion. And I've been against it forever, I think, for some very good reasons. Number one, it's an imperfect solution, right? I mean, look at the number of people who've been found on death row who not to have committed the crimes for which they were placed on death row for a whole variety of reasons. And look at the number of people who have been innocently executed because of that their innocence was not determined before they were led to the electric chair or to the gurney or hung or whatever the method of death penalty was. So number one, we get it wrong sometimes. Number two, it's very unevenly applied. Whether you get the death penalty or not in this country really depends on how much money you have, how good your attorney is, how good the judge happens to be, what color you are, what's your skin color, whether you're a man or a woman, what part of the country you live in. More likely to get it in the South, certainly more likely to get it in Texas than anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just not evenly applied across. So in terms of equal justice for all, it's not equal justice for all. And again, then what does it really ultimately mean? It means that we end up killing somebody. So we're just continuing the cycle of killing that gets us nowhere, and it doesn't bring our loved ones back. And I don't think it provides closure at all. And yet, that's what some people argue.
You hear that a lot.
Yeah. Some of the families have actually said, no, we don't believe this would bring us closure. We just are not going to go for the for the death penalty. So for all of those reasons, and you can even get down to the practical one. Study after study after study has shown that trying to get the death penalty is a lot more expensive because there's so many appeals. It takes so long. The attorneys cost so much. It's a lot more expensive than just locking them up and throwing the key away. And I believe that for this 21-year-old kid, murderer that he is, putting him in a little box and locking the door, and he'll never see the light of day again in his entire life, that's a fate worse than death. He could be there 70 years, right?
Yeah.
Never get out of there.
He's a young man.
Yeah. There is no... So, and we've got prisons today. We don't have to worry about their breaking out of the prisons that we've got today. What do you think? If you were on the jury, how would you vote? 866-55-PRESS. I vote life in prison without parole. How about you?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all of the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university. And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, we're talking about the penalty phase trial for Boston Marathon bomber Johar Tsarnaev in Boston. The question is, should he get the death penalty or life in prison without parole? Maybe it certainly depends on where you stand on the death penalty. I remember in Los Angeles, when I was living there and doing television in Los Angeles, I was called on jury duty in a capital punishment case, and I was actually picked for the jury, at least for the first cut of the jury, and then the second cut of the jury, and yet from the beginning I told them I was against the death penalty, and finally we got to I was one of maybe the last 20 being considered for the 12 jurors, and we had this 30-page thing to fill out, and I said once again, no, there is no way, I don't care what the evidence shows, I am not ever going to vote for the death penalty, and they finally threw me off the jury. But I think if you believe that, you believe it, period. Ron, in Elgin, Illinois. What do you think, Ron? How would you vote?
Good morning, Bill. No,
Right.
no death penalty. Society does not have the right, it's not morally just to kill somebody after society says it's wrong to kill somebody. And for him to spend the rest of his life in jail, that will be a hell on earth.
Actually, absolutely a hell on earth. No, I think you're right. I don't think we have the right to kill. I don't think society does, and we sort of become like them when we do. Appreciate hearing from you, Ron. Let's talk to Helen up in Ithaca, New York. Hey, Helen, how are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm good. How are you, sir?
Beautiful Ithaca, New York. It's gorgeous. Ithaca's gorgeous, right?
And so far, we haven't executed anybody here, so that's good.
Well, that's good. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I'm with you and with Ron. I wish we would join the rest of the civilized world and abolish the death penalty. It was abolished for a short period of time during the 1970s.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we brought it back for some genius reason. And so it's very, very sad. They've got to cover, even during the French Revolution, they had the guillotine guy.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Helen. Good to hear from you as always.
Is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's going to love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Yes, indeed, the penalty phase of the Joe Arsenayev trial underway in Boston yesterday in a very dramatic fashion, with the prosecution showing a photo from a surveillance camera of Joe Arsenayev just after he'd been arrested in the holding cell, flipping the bird at the surveillance camera and at law enforcement authorities, and if not the entire world. He's shown no remorse throughout the trial, hasn't testified either. But very cocky attitude in the courtroom. And now the jury has to decide what happens to him. Does he spend life in prison without parole, or would he get the death penalty, which again has been banned in Massachusetts for at least 20 years, but is applicable under a federal crime with which he has been of which he has been found guilty. 866-55-PRESS. The families are split on this. Some of them are saying, yep, he's a monster. He deserves a death penalty. Others are saying, look, it's not going to bring our loved ones back. It's not going to heal my wounds. It's not going to resolve anything. And the only reason for it would be revenge, and that is hardly a justifiable motivation or basis for our legal system in this country. Lots of calls, lots of reactions. 866-55-PRESS. You want to join the conversation? Peter?
There are other ways to join the conversation, by the way. If you're on Twitter, you can follow us at BP Show. At BP Show, and tweet at us. We'll check them out all throughout the program. NC Nomad says, I don't believe in state-sanctified murder. Regardless, a life in prison is worse than death. Barbara says, let's have life for the Boston bomber. Death is too easy. Let's let him suffer for a long, long time. And Mama for Obama weighs in, says, if I were on the jury, I would vote no on the death penalty. I would not grant him martyrdom or the ability to appeal. Remember, you can find us on Twitter at BP Show.
Both points are very good. I mean, death penalty, those who get death penalty are able to, it seems, appeal endlessly. And in fact, if you look at the number of people on death row and the number that actually get executed, it's a very small amount of those who are sent there because the appeals take so long. And again, are so expensive, and that's all at taxpayers' expense. They're not paying for their own appeal as well. And the martyrdom issue is an important one too. The last thing we want is for him to become a martyr. You know, and there used to be a time when people would say, well, you know, like in the days up back of San Quentin, I guess, or Alcatraz. Oh, but they could escape, and then they're back on the loose, and then they're a threat to the public. We have prisons today that nobody's ever going to escape.
Yeah, come on, get real, guys.
I mean, we got some of the worst criminals in the history of humankind away in some of these new federal prisons. They're not going to get out. No. And so this guy would not either. I don't think we have to worry about that. Again, 866-55-PRESS. How would you vote? As far as I'm concerned, you're against the death penalty. You're against the death penalty, period. No exceptions. Louis in Jasper, Indiana. Hey, Louis, what do you say?
Hey, Bill. What I think they should do to his cocky little butt is stick him in a cell somewhere, and then on the date that he did that bombing, come in and amputate a part until you've got him narrowed down to nothing.
Oh, well, Louis, that I appreciate the call, but that's as bad as a death penalty. And what you're just saying is you'd give him the death penalty except one limb at a time.
Torture him.
Torture him. Yeah. We don't do that either.
Above that, too.
We did outlaw torture in this country. That's been outlawed. That is outlawed at the federal level, by the way. Yeah, what you're suggesting. And I am pleased to say that option is not one that the jury has in front of it.
Right.
But I do understand, again, this is a real test. And I go back to my experience in Los Angeles, that I remember that what they try to do, okay, you're against the death penalty, okay, yeah, but in this case, would you make an exception? Right? Yeah, they want you to say, okay, yeah, this guy's so bad, okay, I can see that here, I'll say, no.
Or the classical, what if this happened to your mother or your child or your spouse? Wouldn't you feel differently? I mean, it's a hard comparison to make, but if you're against the death penalty, you're against the death penalty.
Right, and I admire these families who have come out and said, look, yes, the worst thing that happened to us is we lost our son, we lost our daughter, but the answer is not to kill somebody else. It takes a lot of courage for them to say that, but I think they're absolutely right. I hope the jury does the right thing. Meanwhile, one other big story we got to touch on here before we talk to David Jackson down at the White House, and that is, yes, indeed, and the Senate has scheduled a vote. Mitch McConnell has agreed there will be a vote tomorrow, Thursday, on the confirmation of Loretta Lynch as the next Attorney General of the United States. Reportedly, some 5 Republicans already have said, there were 3 publicly, I think there are 2 more who've indicated they will vote for her. She will have enough votes to be confirmed. She will be the next Attorney General. You know, I know we're supposed to celebrate that. I think it's too little too late. I think Republicans have already overplayed their hand and showed their total disdain we know their disdain for President Obama, but here their disdain for an outstanding member of the legal profession, outstanding U.S. attorney, and their disdain generally for women and African Americans. So Mitch McConnell yesterday, or first of all, Josh Earnest at our briefing at the White House yesterday, saying that now that they seem to have reached a bipartisan agreement on the sex trafficking bill, the White House hopeful that they can move forward with Loretta Lynch. This was before the deal had actually been reached. Josh Earnest yesterday.
We are hopeful, though I don't know that we've seen tangible agreement, that after the passage of the human trafficking bill, if the compromise holds up, that the Senate will promptly turn their attention to the nomination of Loretta Lynch.
But again, the whole way this has been handled has been disgraceful. Just to put it in perspective once again, she was nominated by President Obama last November, November 8, 2 months after Eric Holder announced that he was resigning, and Republicans begging the president and advising the president, don't be in a hurry to pick anybody. Take your time so that we're sure we can get somebody who will be basically non-controversial, we can all support. He came up with that person in Loretta Lynch. Once she was named, everybody said, from John McCain, Rudy Giuliani, top Republicans, boy, she's an outstanding choice. Nobody has ever raised one item or one objection to her qualifications. And then Democrats and the president agreed to Republican demands that they don't do anything until after Republicans took over the Senate, because they already knew that they would have the majority come January. So they waited until January, and Mitch McConnell said, you do that, and we promise you we'll treat her fairly, we'll move promptly, and she will be confirmed. Mitch McConnell lied through his teeth, reneged on his promise, and here we are still today. No vote, not until tomorrow, which will be 166 days after she was nominated. Disgrace, the way this has been handled, and just proves Mitch McConnell, you can't trust him. Didn't we know that already?
Shock.
David Jackson is standing by at the White House. He covers the White House for USA Today. Joins us next for his weekly visit to the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You know, sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple, and they add up, and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you know, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues, and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. You know, and like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go now. 13 minutes before the top of the hour. You know, it's a big week in Washington, D.C. This is the week we live for. The White House Correspondents do, because it's the big dinner, the White House Correspondents' dinner, Saturday night, and everybody's ready, brushing their tucks off, shining their shoes. Getting ready for the big party. Nobody more excited than David Jackson down at the White House. Hey, David.
It's already started.
He's already partying, huh?
I know, it already has.
Well, I had some friends come in last night, so we got together to bash about old times and watch the Capitals and the Wizards, and it turned into kind of a late night, so I'm glad to be here.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you are, too. So how many White House Correspondents' dinner is this for you? Have you kept count?
21st.
Get out.
Yeah.
Whoa. Now,
I've been lucky. I've been in town for every one of them since I moved here.
Yeah, well, you were president of the White House Correspondents Association at one point. So you presided over this dinner not so many years ago. Who was the president then?
It was President Obama, and we had Seth Meyers was our comedian. So it was 2011. It was it was the Bin Laden weekend.
That was your dinner?
It turned into quite. I thought I was going to get a few days off after the dinner, but it didn't turn out to be the case.
No. Well, I have to tell you, Seth Meyers is one of the best performances I've seen in all the years I've gone.
Really good.
Yeah.
We're taking full credit for his late night show now. So.
Oh, you should.
You started that.
Yeah. That was the night that he blistered Donald Trump.
Very good, yeah.
Oh, good for you. Good choice.
That was a good night.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to this year's?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Cecily Strong, who's also from Saturday Night Live, is going to be the comedian, and I think she's only the fourth woman to have done the dinner, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm just.
She's really, really funny.
She is funny. And her father is a reporter. He's a journalist. He's covered the Illinois legislature for years. So he covered Barack Obama way back when. So
I didn't know that.
Interesting family connection. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I hope he fed her some good material.
Well, I mean, yeah, she does have a little info on him from back in the day. So who knows?
I'm just blanking on the African American woman,
Wanda Sykes.
Wanda Sykes.
Right.
She was one of the funniest ones ever.
Yeah, she was good. She was good. Nice person too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, David, the president goes off to. Well, I'll see you there anyhow. I got my dancing shoes ready. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, that's right.
The president goes off. This is Earth Day, an unusual way to celebrate Earth Day today, right?
Yep, he's flying down to the Florida Everglades to take a tour and also examine some of the damage that climate change has done to the Everglades, and he's going to give what is being billed as a major speech on the topic. He's going to talk about his own efforts to rein in global warming. He's going to criticize the Republicans for opposing him, and he's going to tout the idea of a global climate change agreement.
Yeah, certainly with rising sea levels, places like the Everglades are going to be one of the first ones to be wiped out. I think that's the point he wants to make, right?
Just between man and the environment itself, the Everglades are kind of under assault.
I'm worried about those Burmese pythons.
Yo.
You know? Whoa.
And the alligators?
Yeah, I hope the Secret Service is on the job down there.
Well, that's going to be one of the... You'll be hearing some complaints about this. First, of course, he's taking Air Force One down to the Everglades to give an environmental speech. Some people have already criticized him for that. And they're going to be going all over the Everglades in these big fan boats, I hear.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, whoa. Is he going to go on one of those?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the plan. So there'll be at least two of them because there's going to be a trailer boat with all the press and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to be...
Nice.
But those are that's what they take tourists out on, I think, in the Everglades. Isn't that right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. So he may step on his own message, is what you're saying.
Well, I'm sure some people will say that. You know how it goes.
Yesterday, so many questions in the briefing about what the hell we're doing. The United States is doing, putting these warships in the Gulf of Aden off the coast of Yemen. Didn't get any really clear answer, did we?
No, well, they say it's to preserve the navigation lanes, which of course is a cover at best.
Right.
Now, we're just trying to send a message to Iran. A lot of Arab allies are upset with Iran's aggression in the region, including supplying arms to the rebels in Yemen, and that's where these boats are headed between Iran and Yemen, and it's just basically to send a message to Tehran.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that they've got other purpose than just keeping the navigation lanes.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
In fact,
it's all tied into these Iran nuclear negotiations, so the administration doesn't want to talk too much about that. But
and then the president went out of his way last night to give this interview with Chris Matthews on the TPP. He's making this a top priority.
Well, he says so. He's going to need to, otherwise it's not going to get through Congress because there's a significant amount of Democratic opposition to Trade Promotion Authority and some Republican opposition. So they're really going to have to work it, and there are people in the White House who aren't totally confident he's going to be able to do it. So,
were you surprised to see him actually come out? I mean, usually he's a little maybe more careful with his criticism, but on Elizabeth Warren and the TPP, he just said she's dead wrong.
Yeah. I think he's consistently said he believes in free trade and believes that the TPP in particular would be a very good deal for us and the Asian nations. I do think he's committed to that, but it's going to be a tough sell because most of the opposition comes from his own party. But he also sees it as a way to show that he really is bipartisan. He can work with the Republicans because obviously this is something that a lot of the GOP is very interested in.
Right, and it seems, I mean, not that we ever expect any consistency from Congress. We've learned that. But, the Republicans on the one hand say, the President Obama abused his authority, right, on like immigration, for example. We don't want to give him any more executive authority. And yet with the TPP, the Fast Track Authority, they're saying, yes, let's give him all the authority he needs to make a deal.
Exactly. Well, there you go. Well, it's consistent from years past because they gave Bush Trade Promotion Authority, so it's consistent from that standpoint. But they don't want any trade deals to be. They don't want anyone to have the right to amend a trade deal because a lot of this stuff would get support in Congress, so they don't want to risk that.
Right. No, exactly. So who are your guests this weekend, USA Today's guests? Do you have any big
We're more in the Hollywood thing. We have a president of our cable, Alfred Woodard, who I guess plays the president on that NBC drama State of Affairs, is one of our guests.
Yeah.
The singer Rob Thomas is on our list. But they've been pretty parsimonious with the names, but those are two of the ones I've heard.
Yeah. No, Alfred Woodard's a great actress.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a nice person, too. I'm looking forward to that.
All right, yeah. Well, again, we'll see you there. No briefing today, so enjoy the day off.
Well, I'll try to. I'll try to stagger through it.
You know what? You can rest up from last night's party.
Yes, well, I've got more on the way. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's an all-week affair now. So
there it is, David Jackson.
Get after it.
In demand.
Yes,
Party
sir.
hardy. All right.
Get after it.
Party animal. Thanks, David. Talk to you soon.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Top of the next hour, Shane Goldmacher from National Journal joins us, and then Larry Cohen, president of the Communication Workers of America.
You know, earlier this week, Bill, it was 420.
Yes,
as we
yes,
talked
indeed.
about.
We celebrated.
We celebrated here on the show.
In our way.
In our own special way. Well, a lot of people celebrated in Denver. And, you know, you can't walk around and get high in public in Denver, but don't tell that to the 196 people who received marijuana-related citations and arrests in Denver on 420. They were all about people who were walking around just smoking pot openly, which you cannot do. So the Denver Police Department reported yesterday 196 people were given a ticket or arrested on 420.
This is just another way that Colorado is making money off
That's
the
right. See how
Always
much,
the
see
optimist.
How good pot has been for the economy?
They're getting all kinds of revenue
Yeah,
from pot.
that's
Yeah,
right,
it's
man.
good for everybody.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, what do you say, friends and neighbors? Here we go. Wednesday, April 22nd, and the special edition of the Bill Press Show for this Wednesday. Here in our nation's capital is where you find us in our studio on Capitol Hill. We are reaching out to you on Free Speech TV nationwide and worldwide. On our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. Thank you so much for joining us. Finally, Senate Republicans have agreed, Mitch McConnell's agreed to have a vote on the confirmation of Loretta Lynch as our next Attorney General. The vote will be tomorrow on Thursday, but the damage is already done. This is too little, too late. She will be confirmed, but Republicans have already shown, after making her wait 165 days as of today, for a vote, they've already shown what they think about women and what they think about African Americans. Up in Boston, the penalty phase of the trial for Johar Tsarnaev began yesterday. Prosecutors demanding the death penalty, but the jurors we don't know, residents of Boston are split, and so are the families of the victims. Some of them urging the death penalty, some of them saying no, the death penalty is wrong, even for him. Life in prison without parole is a better choice. President Obama giving an interview last night with Chris Matthews of MSNBC on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the so-called TPP, which he insists is a good trade deal, but Democrats are split. Even Hillary Clinton yesterday saying she's against any trade deal unless it produces new jobs. Today, the president goes down to the Everglades to talk about climate change, one of the great natural wonders of the world, and one of the first to be lost with rising sea levels unless we do something about climate change. And the Big Easy ain't so easy anymore. As of midnight tonight, you won't be able to smoke in bars in New Orleans. What took them so long? Lots to talk about today. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Welcome to this Wednesday edition of The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years. That the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up and built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds, of migratory birds, started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. But here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is Earth Day, and if we love the Earth so much, why are we in the process of destroying it? President Obama is going to talk about that today down at the Everglades. Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday, April 22nd. Good to see you today, and thank you for joining us here on The Bill Press Show. Booming out to you live from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. With the news of the day, we'll tell you what's going on here in Washington, around the country, around the globe. You tell us what it all means to you, what you think about it. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. That's how you join us. Or you can just send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. News everywhere you look. Today, Hillary Clinton continuing her quiet little tour up in New Hampshire. The penalty phase of the Boston Marathon bombing trial yesterday up in Boston got underway. And here in Washington, Republicans and Democrats in the Senate have finally reached some resolution of the standoff over the human sex trafficking bill, child sex trafficking bill. And so, therefore, Mitch McConnell has scheduled a vote on the confirmation of Loretta Lynch as our next Attorney General for tomorrow. We'll tell you again what's going on. You tell us what it means to you. With our team here this morning, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy, as always.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
All right. We're middle of the week, huh? Getting there.
Hump day.
Almost there.
Hump day.
Every day is one more step till Friday.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, right. And Cyprian Bolding, videographer on the job. I got the lights and the cameras on today. We welcome to the studio to cover the politics of the moment. Shane Goldmacher is a senior political correspondent for the National Journal. In studio this morning. Thanks for coming in early, Shane. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
Right down from New Hampshire, huh?
Yeah.
It gets people of New Hampshire just get sick of it after a while.
Not the ones I was speaking with. They're pretty excited to have not just 1 or 2 or 8 Republican presidential candidates.
How about
19.
How about 19, right?
I'm not sure. You try to count up to 19. It's a little hard, but at least a dozen serious people up in New Hampshire.
Well, there were 19, and there were a couple who weren't there. I mean, Rick Santorum and Ben Carson. So Larry Sabato of the University of Virginia, the great Larry Sabato, his count is 21.
That's a big number.
I can't wait for the first debate because I want to see them all lined up on stage. And then they ask the first question, which is, why are you running? And 2 hours later, number 21 finally gets to speak.
It's funny. It's actually probably a problem for the Republican National Committee. I mean, they're going to have to come up with some criteria for these debates, who gets to be in there and who doesn't. And it's a challenge. If you're, Bob Ehrlich, the former governor of Maryland, right. You say you're running for president, but nobody's listening to you. You think this debate's your first shot to really get a national audience. Do you even get it? I mean, with 21 people, divide up an hour, 3 minutes, you get an opening statement and you're done.
You're done. It's all over. Yeah, that's it. So we got lots to cover. We'll get right into it all a little bit later in the hour. Larry Cohen will be joining us. He's the president of the Communication Workers of America. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just breaking news. We go to North Jersey in Norwood. Schools there are on lockdown because of coyotes. Coyote dens have been found very close to a couple of neighborhood schools.
Coyotes don't eat children.
Well, rabid coyotes attack. And so that's the problem. They've had a couple of cases of rabid coyotes that have actually attacked humans, and they've confirmed the rabies there. In fact, one of them tested for rabies earlier this month. It's the first rabid coyote in New Jersey in the last 25 years. But because they are so close to schools, kids are on lockdown. They can't go outside. There's no recess. There's no outdoor classes or anything like that, all because of coyotes in New Jersey.
Whoa.
Right?
What's Chris Christie doing about it?
Come on, get on the job here.
Yeah, he's up in New Hampshire. You ought to be down in New Jersey taking care of the coyotes, right? Yeah, just tell him.
Netflix has another hit on its hands. Marvel's Daredevil, the season 1, is already put out there a couple weeks ago, and it's been so successful that they announced yesterday that there will be a second season of Daredevil. Now, the whole idea here is that they're going to have 3 different Marvel shows, independent television shows, that are going to merge together into one big storyline at the end. So Daredevil is part 1, then there's going to be Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, all going to come out, and then they're going to come together in a new series called The Defenders.
I'm so excited.
Aren't you excited, Bill? I had to totally geek out on you there for a second.
I'll have to carve out some time.
Daredevil's really good. You would hate it, but it's really good. It's really, really good.
Don't worry, I'm not going to watch it.
And of all the presidential candidates you guys just mentioned, you didn't mention maybe the most important. Waka Flocka Flame, the rapper from Atlanta, has declared that he is running for president. He did it on a video that he put on Rolling Stone magazine's website.
Have you interviewed him yet, Shane?
That is not among the people I've interviewed.
You haven't talked to Mr. Flocka Flame? I guess is his last name Flame, or is it
Mr. Flame? Mr. Flame to you.
Candidate Flame. Candidate Flame says he's running for president. Quote, "I will be running for president, and the first thing I'm going to do when I get into office, legalize marijuana." End quote. Yeah. So he's running on just kind of one issue there. We'll see how far that takes him. So,
well, he might do well in Colorado, Washington, Alaska, or Oregon.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And the District of Columbia.
He's got a western states plan.
That's right.
I like it. Well, so we make it 22 now, I'm sure. All right, so Shane, you just got back from New Hampshire. That's where everything was happening last week into Friday and Saturday with the big National Republican Leadership Conference where the 19 candidates showed up. You, I'm sure, followed most of them, right? Were able to talk to them, follow them around.
Yeah.
Anyone that particularly impressed you with his or her operation?
Yeah, a couple of them really stood out. At the event itself, look, New Hampshire giving big speeches isn't usually where it's at. It's working living rooms and the like. But this was a setting for big speeches, and the person who really stood out there was Marco Rubio. There's not a real question that he can deliver a good speech. That's not the question about his campaign. That said, you still have to do it. And, he gave one of the keynote evening addresses, and really the room was just dead silent, in his palms, really listening closely. That stood out. And then there's those second tier things of how do you deal with people on a
How about Scott Walker? No?
Scott Walker had a different setting. So they spoke both evenings, but Walker was in a much smaller room and it was a much more relaxed affair. Liking what he said, but I don't think people were quite as enraptured as they were for Rubio.
Okay.
There was really no question, I think, that Rubio had the audience, much more in his hands. And then you could see some of them interact with people, and that was a lot of fun, too. One of the questions I have about Ted Cruz going into this campaign is, look, the guy is very smart. He, too, does give a pretty good speech. But how does he interact with people on, like, a human level, one-on-one?
Yeah.
And so two things. One, he worked the halls a little bit of this event, and, he just doesn't have that interpersonal schmoozing that some of these guys just have in spades. He's not a Chris Christie who's backslapping and hugging. And Ted Cruz is shaking hands. He keeps his hands in his pockets. He's, struggles a little bit. But when he has his events on the trail, you know what? He doesn't have small crowds. He already has big crowds. And so that insulates you a little awkward setting,
Right. So on the one-on-one, you found Christie was really... maybe the charmer. It's hard to think of him that way, but
he really does. He has a good human. Two people who really in this field. You don't always think immediately. This is Rick Perry and Chris Christie. Both have sort of really good human level charm skills. One guy shook Chris Christie's hand and walked away and said, "Man, Chris Christie's got a great grip." It's like those little things. He likes it. I mean, if the Jersey thing can come off brash in certain settings, when you're one-on-one, it comes off like he's paying a lot of attention to you.
My interactions with Chris Christie have all been around White House Correspondents' dinners.
Okay.
At least maybe 3 of them. I can remember distinctly 3 different, and they've all been fun and personable and just kind of a good guy and good time to be around and So I can see that with him. He's good in a crowd. He's good with people.
He's good with people. I mean, he's got these competing things, right? He's basically talking about going to New Hampshire and becoming John McCain 2008, basically doing as many town halls as he can. And this is a state that likes you taking tough questions, and he likes taking tough questions.
Oh, he does. He thrives on it, relishes it. So the idea that Chris Christie, that we were hearing before New Hampshire, that Chris Christie's presidential chances were moribund, right? That he was out of the running, you would say is wrong.
He has there's these two competing things. One is he has these interpersonal skills, and he's going to invest in a state that appreciates it, and he fits. His personality fits. On the other hand, he's got a lot of downsides. And, New Jersey, just as he was heading up to New Hampshire, had a state credit downgrade. I think it's 9th. It's an awful lot if you're a Republican running on turning around the economy. He's got the potential for indictments in the bridge scandal. And just yesterday, still. And just yesterday, there was not necessarily indictments of him, but people in his administration. We don't know how close it gets to him, and the details would have to come out. And yesterday, one of the things he's trying to promote, look, he's does the hard things. He's working with the teachers on a pension cut up in New Jersey. The teachers walked away from talks yesterday. So he's got a lot of things pulling him the wrong direction at the same time.
The one guy who's trying to carve his own way, it seems, is and a different path perhaps to the nomination, is Rand Paul. You haven't mentioned him yet. You mentioned Ted Cruz. You mentioned Marco Rubio. Is he a player? Did you see him as a player in New Hampshire? Yeah,
I didn't get a chance to see Rand Paul's events. I actually followed around his wife a little bit, and I'll have a story about her later today on our National Journal's website. But she's also a player for him up there. But yeah, there's no question that Rand Paul is a player in New Hampshire. His dad won, I think, 24% in the state. That could be close enough to winning the state if you got 19 candidates. You divide up the field. If you can get to even a little above where his dad was, that's a really strong place to start. And so, yeah, he has this unique place where he can compete in both Iowa and New Hampshire with that 20% level is within reach. Look, there's not that many people who can guarantee they can get close to 20%.
And how about the putative front runner, Jeb Bush?
I spent a good amount of time.
Did you?
Yeah. He had 3 public events in the state. I went to all of them. He does not have the backslapping skills of a Chris Christie, but he does come across as smart, perhaps sometimes too smart for his own good. He's you can almost see him thinking when he responds to questions. But he answered a...
God forbid. Unlike his brother, you can see him thinking when he responds to a question.
I talked to one person after one of his events in a snowshoe lodge. He said, if I didn't know that this was George W. Bush's brother, there's no way I would know that this is George W. Bush's brother.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got an operation up there. He's got a couple people already on the ground working for him. He's doing all the right things. Look, this could set up to be one of the most important states for him in the country. Iowa lays out really toughly for both the Bush brand and the Bush sort of type of republicanism that he has. New Hampshire's probably a better fit, and you're going to have to pick up one of these early states to be a competitor. Yes, he's going to raise tons of money, but if you don't win anywhere, you're not winning anywhere.
Look, we know this field is going to be winnowed down to maybe 6, right?
Yeah.
Serious ones, I don't know, 6 to 8. Who are the ones right now that you would just dismiss entirely? I mean, obvious. Okay. You and I
was going to say the ones we haven't been speaking about.
yeah, right. I mean, John Bolton, right?
Yeah, John Bolton.
Jim Gilmore. You mentioned Bob Ehrlich. Okay. How about John Kasich?
Well, John Kasich's not in the race, and I think that if he gets in, look, I think the fact that John Kasich is looking at getting into this race says something to me about Jeb Bush, because they represent a similar approach to republicanism in terms of they want to run and they want to sort of consolidate establishment center-right support, but they are conservative Republicans. And look, if Jeb Bush was dominating, John Kasich wouldn't be looking at getting into this race. He's a person who has potential. He was Paul Ryan before Paul Ryan was Paul Ryan. He was the young House Budget Committee chairman. Now he's the governor of Ohio. Those are pretty good things on your resume if you're thinking about running for president. So he's not in there yet, but I certainly wouldn't dismiss him.
Would you dismiss Bobby Jindal?
Bobby Jindal is really struggling for oxygen. I think the most coverage I saw him get up in New Hampshire was a photo on the Union Leader, the big newspaper up there. This is a really big field. He has some credentials on paper, but nobody seems to be really excited about Bobby Jindal besides the people who are working for him.
Would Carly Fiorina be getting any traction if she were not the only woman in the race?
That's like such a good question about her campaign. I actually covered her Senate race back in California. She's become a much better candidate since then.
She certainly was not a good Senate candidate.
She was not at the beginning, and even by the end of that race in 2010, she ran in California for Senate, lost to Barbara Boxer. She actually got closer than Meg Whitman did, who was running that year for governor, and Meg Whitman spent $170 million. So
right.
Carly Fiorina, even though she was more to the right of the electorate than Meg Whitman, got closer to Barbara Boxer because she ended up being a pretty good candidate. That said, in this field, she's never held any elected office. I mean, it's not very common that Americans, Republicans, anyone chooses to elect a president who's never been in public office. It's almost a prerequisite at this point. Yes, she ran a big business, but there's a lot of questions about her HP tenure. And yeah, there's no question that she's getting more attention because when they have a debate and they have that stage, there's going to be a lot of guys and one woman, and she's that woman.
Right. So it is, bubbling every day. Seems one more candidate jumps in 2016. We're talking the latest Republican field. Let's look at the Democratic field when we come back with Shane Goldmacher, senior political correspondent for the National Journal, nationaljournal.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, 26 minutes now after the hour. Larry Cohen, president of the Communication Workers of America, up at the half hour. Right now in studio with us, Shane Goldmacher is the senior political correspondent for the National Journal, just back from the whirlwind tour of New Hampshire, following the 19 Republican presidential candidates around. And after you left, Hillary Clinton moved in.
She did.
Kind of more of a low-key kind of campaign.
This is how she wants it to be seen, at least.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Iowa first, New Hampshire second. She's trying to... Everything she seems to do seems to be trying to right the wrongs of 2008.
And flying under the radar, which is almost impossible for her.
Yeah, the flying on the radar is more of the, like, can she get the evening news snapshot look like a small event, you know? Does it look like there are 1,500 people at a thing, or does it look small? I mean, it's almost just tough to see her sitting around a table with 6 people when you've got 100 reporters, 50 cameras in the back. I mean, is this really intimate? But, like, she's between a rock and a hard place. What else is she going to do? She's not going to have, we're talking about the great thing about New Hampshire is people go around and they have to deal with people on a small one-on-one basis in diners, in VFW halls. Hillary Clinton can't really do that. And if she does, she's doing it without telling the press. And then she gets the media horde that's already a little frustrated with her team's lack of accessibility, even more angry because suddenly she did things and she didn't tell anybody about it. There's almost like this White House press pool expectation that everything she does, you should be able to be notified about in advance. And so this is the best she can come up with.
Do we know, just about out of time, but do we know, is she going to South Carolina next? I mean, is she doing...
She's not announced. I think she's going to do at least a few fundraisers to fill the coffers of her campaign. But again, she's opting not for the giant ones. She's not talked about South Carolina. She's focused on those first 2 states so far.
Iowa and New Hampshire. All right. Well, we're just getting started, but as it moves along, we hope we have a chance to talk to you often. Shane, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me in.
And will there be a challenge to Hillary Clinton in the primary? That's something Larry Cohen would like to see. He'll tell us about it coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 33 minutes after the hour now on this Wednesday, April 22nd. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. on this Wednesday. It's good to have you with us on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide. Good to see you on Free Speech TV nationwide as well and worldwide on our video stream. TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. One of the big issues here in Washington, D.C. now getting to a boiling point is a debate over the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the so-called TPP, which is a top priority of President Obama's and of Senate Republicans, not necessarily of Senate or House Democrats. Larry Cohen is with us, president of Communication Workers of America, one of the most outspoken, first of all, in my own judgment, the most effective and best and most articulate of our labor leaders in this country, and a real leader in the campaign against TPP. Hey, Larry, it's good to see you.
Great to be with you again.
Thanks for coming in. I know these are busy days for you. So this kind of came up, President Obama went out of his way last night, actually, to give an interview with Chris Matthews on MSNBC on this topic, trying to build public support. Chris started by showing a video of Elizabeth Warren a few days ago in front of the Capitol, where she, let her speak for herself. Here she is.
No more secret trade deals. Are you ready to fight? No more secret deals. No more special deals for multinational corporations. Are you ready to fight? Are you ready to fight? Any more deals that say we're going to help the rich get richer and leave everyone else behind? Are you ready to fight that?
There she is. So Chris Matthews asked President Obama, what's your response to this? He made it very clear.
Well, I guess they don't want it to happen. And I love Elizabeth. We're allies on a whole host of issues. But she's wrong on this.
Who's right? Who's wrong?
Elizabeth's right. Totally right. Her op-ed that she wrote a few weeks ago in the Washington Post nailed the worst issue, which is this investor-state dispute settlement, secret corporate tribunals. This is what she meant by the rich get richer in that soundbite. It's one way. So when a corporation invests or wants to invest in any of the partner countries and they get blocked, they get to sue in a secret tribunal, literally secret, with corporate lawyers presiding, and they get reparations for any damage to future lost profits, not just their investment. So let me give an example, because it sounds like gibberish even to my two daughters, who are quite smart. But Occidental Petroleum sues Ecuador because Ecuador denies drilling rights off their coast to protect their environment. Occidental Petroleum got $2.3 billion for the future lost profits of drilling they never did. And Ecuador doesn't have $2.3 billion. So the outcome eventually will be they'll let them drill. Philip Morris sues Uruguay and Australia because both countries put in plain package cigarette labeling, stripped off the labeling. Australia put health warnings on there. And they sued. That suit is ongoing. So imagine this. A nation can't warn people about cancer on cigarette packages because, in this case, they're damaging the future profits of Philip Morris. Philip Morris sues them. There's 500 cases in process right now. The worst is really Vattenfall, a Swedish company, versus Germany. Merkel, a conservative, after Fukushima, passed legislation in the Bundestag saying we're going to phase out nuclear power plants. They're located in Germany in highly populated areas. Vattenfall is suing. That's ongoing. 5 billion euros. $6 billion lawsuit. This is what investor-state dispute settlement is. It's core to the TPP. Our fast-track proposal, which was dumped last week with no warning, 115-page bill, does nothing to rein in investor-state dispute settlement, and it's outrageous. This is what Elizabeth's talking about. The president's wrong. The president's totally wrong. And he flips it around on us. He says, well, I've been with working people before. Yeah, the question, Mr. President, is where are you now?
Right. No, I saw him at the White House last week in the news conference with Matteo Renzi, the Prime Minister of Italy, and this question came up, and he said that was his response. Look, this is me, right? You know, these are not big corporations that elected me. It was working people, working families. That's who I've always represented. So, of course, he says, I'm not going to do any deal that's going to be bad for working families.
And he's got it totally backwards. He knows it. He's moving here on direction from the State Department, from the National Security Council, from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. He's got it totally wrong. First time in my 10 years as president, every union in this country, not just AFL-CIO, carpenters, Teamsters, SEIU, National Education Association, every major environmental group, every immigrant rights group, because this is their story. Families ruined by NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement in Mexico. Families ruined by CAFTA, the Central America Free Trade Agreement. Farmers, small farmers lost their land. Every progressive group in the base of the Democratic Party is against fast track.
Is against fast track. And I want to ask you particularly because the issue now is fast track, right? Which is giving the president the authority to make the deal, and Congress then would only be able to vote yes or no, right?
That's it.
Yeah. Now, the president says every other president has had that authority, Democrats and Republicans. Why not me?
So first of all, he had it for 3 trade deals that are quite questionable. Colombia, where there continue to be murders of all kinds of human rights activists, including union activists. Panama and Korea. Korea is only 2 years ago that was passed under fast track and under his administration. And the trade deficit in Korea has doubled in 2 years. So, you know, he has had fast track on 3 deals. The record's not good, Mr. President. We don't want fast track. No other democracy in the world has fast track. They all have bilateral trade agreements.
So we've seen he's made these other deals, and these are bad deals.
They're bad deals. Panama, we could be agnostic about, but mostly bad deals. And he has had it. And this fast track bill that was introduced again in secret last Thursday, the day after that rally, is mostly giving fast track authority to the next president. We don't even know who the next president is. It extends for 5 years, and we don't even know how many trade deals will come under that fast track because they can be initiated a year or 2 years from now.
Do we know what's in this deal? By the way,
we have the leaks. Yeah, pretty sad that WikiLeaks is our best authority. That's how I read the investor chapter. That's the labor chapter, the environmental chapter, WikiLeaks, and then yes, you can. Some of us can go into who are cleared can go into rooms with no pen, no paper, no recordings, and read certain slices of it. But 600 multinational corporations have had inside ability to work on their pieces. Big Pharma, all kinds of companies have been able to, Wall Street, to work on their parts of this 1,000 to 2,000 page document that's 99% done.
That's the complaint that I hear most often from Democrats in Congress, and many of them have been in here. Rosa DeLauro and many others.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Said that that they really are kept in the dark, whereas these corporate people who are affected by this they're part of they're at the table, they're writing their own little piece of it, and they know more than members of Congress know about this.
Yeah, well, about their piece, they know everything.
Yeah,
because
right.
as you just said, they actually helped write it. And Rosa's been amazing. She's really whipping this issue. What's also amazing about the president's comments is 80 to 85% of House Democrats are definitely going to vote no. He's rolling his own party. He doesn't run again for election. They run again, and they have to face voters. They have to face a Democratic base. They will face primaries in some cases based on this issue, because this issue is the giant economic issue of the day. It's not just another issue where we say, well, you're right most of the time. This is our jobs. This is our environment. This is our safety. This is our future.
To the extent that you know what's in this deal, are there any protections for jobs, for wages? Are there any protections for the environment?
Yeah, there is better language in some of the chapters. The problem is, compared to investor state that we just talked about, how are our issues, how are citizen issues enforced? They're enforced by, we file a complaint, and then eventually the appropriate government agency, let's say it's a labor issue, the Labor Department, International Labor Affairs Bureau, eventually they write a report. So I've been involved in Honduras with atrocities that have occurred there since the coup. It took 3 years. We just got the report. 3 years after we filed the complaint.
Whoa.
Hundreds of people murdered. Human rights lawyers, 45 journalists murdered. Labor leaders murdered during that time. Unions destroyed. 3 years to get a report. Eventually, the U.S. Trade Representative, the same Mr. Michael Froman, if he's still in office, will meet with the government. That's what we get. We get a report, a very nice report, 128 pages.
Yeah.
Meeting. We don't get a meeting. He gets to have a meeting. Government to government. They get to sue. They get reparations. We get a report.
Yeah.
That's the system.
I think that answers the question. Right. Hillary Clinton yesterday said she didn't say yes, she didn't say no. She said any new trade deal has to, as I remember, has to create jobs.
Yep.
Where does do we know where she stands on the TPP?
No, and we need that's what we need to do. It's one of the reasons why I did write earlier in a column with Annie Leonard from Greenpeace that primaries are helpful, because how do you get a real debate? But let me say this about Secretary Clinton. In her new book, Hard Choices, and yes, I know the page number, 509, she actually says in that book, she questions, without naming an investor-state dispute settlement, she questions trade deals that have special processes for corporations to sue in one-way lawsuits. So I think we need to lift that up. I actually applaud her for that. But now this is the time to come out. Fast track is being fast-tracked. Nobody read that 113-page bill till it was dumped last Thursday. The bill has nothing of use in it. We need Secretary Clinton to say nothing's been done here to rein in ISDS, even to rein it in, to say that if it's cigarettes or if it's this or that, it can't apply. Nothing's been done to rein it in. And she needs to step up and say, I'm on the side of the Democratic base. They're right. Unfortunately, our president is not right on this one.
He is out in front. He is on the job. He is here to talk about TPP. Larry Cohen, you want to join the conversation? 866-55-PRESS is the time to stand up and take sides. Let's talk about it here on the Bill Press Show. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans, because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in
$35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000. I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want. But lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 12 minutes before the top of the hour. Here with Larry Cohen from the president of the Communication Workers Union. Congressman Sam Farr from California coming up in the next hour, joining us. We'll have to find out where he stands on
He
TPP.
needs some work on this, so maybe listeners can call in.
All right. Nice. All right, good enough. And we'll put a little pressure on him too. Yeah. We'll do our lobbying here. I just have to ask you, because you referenced a piece that you wrote recently with the head of Greenpeace, I believe, right?
Yeah, Annie Leonard.
About the need for a contested primary, which is a point I've been making here on the show, too. Nothing against Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely.
I think these issues just have to be debated. Right. Why is that important?
Well, I think it's that. We just used a great example of that. How do you actually get that kind of intensity in a debate in the Democratic Party? We have it in the Congress, but we should be having it in the presidential campaign. How do you get it when she's the only candidate? And when it's a $2 billion admission ticket to get in to the election, how many people are going to get in? So these issues are linked. The money in politics, which we believe we need to get the money out and the voters in. And issues like fast-track TPP and Secretary Clinton's campaign.
And there's a real link here, right, between the corporate money and where the candidates...
particularly on this issue that we just discussed, because it's their number one issue. Ask the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, number one issue, fast-track and the TPP. Ask the Business Roundtable, number one issue. So absolutely, where do you get the money? What do they want in exchange? And they call it, fair trade. We call it, free trade that's not fair at all.
Do you find it maybe amusing or hypocritical that the Republicans, who have made such a big thing attacking President Obama for using his executive authority to sign an immigration immigration reform, now they want to give him all the executive authority he wants to make a trade deal?
Yeah, it's very sad, actually, because the sad part is what's happening to 20 million immigrants in America. The not sad, but part that makes us angry is exactly that. They give them a blank check. And there are some Republicans, there should be at least 50 in the House voting no, partially because of why give any president, frankly, a blank check. Yeah. Congress should be reviewing trade deals. That's what the Constitution says.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're not willing to vote to authorize the use of force against ISIS either, right? So
That's it.
All right. So what are you doing to get a contested primary? Are you trying to get some other candidates to run?
Well, you could probably criticize us and say, not doing enough, frankly. I think we're doing, on that particular issue, probably doing more waiting than actual encouragement of any particular person.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any particular person you want to run?
Well, I think we'd all like to see Elizabeth Warren running. I think then you would have the kind of debate and you would have the kind of discussion that would actually help a Democratic candidate win the election, which is obviously the goal. It's not about winning primaries. It's about winning the election. With no primaries, it's sort of like a Major League Baseball team with no spring training. Even the best team probably wouldn't fare too well.
So maybe not doing enough there, but you're certainly doing a lot and to get Democrats in Congress to oppose the TPP.
Yeah.
What can our viewers, our listeners do? I mean, this is an important issue that really will impact them all. Look at NAFTA, the impact that it's had.
Yeah.
How can we prevent a TPP?
Well,
Stop it.
The key fight is in the House, and I'm glad you'll have Representative Farr coming on here. There are about 20 or 25 Democrats, including him, that could easily vote for it. The good news, again, is that there's probably 160 Democrats that are going to definitely vote no. But and then many listeners are probably in Republican areas. This is not a partisan issue. It shouldn't be, as you can tell, with Boehner and the president on the same side. This is populism. And listeners in Republican areas should be calling their member of Congress and saying, why are you giving away our sovereignty? Why are you giving a blank check? Whether it's this president or any president, but particularly to this president, as you just said, from their point of view. So I think it's particularly a focus on your House member. Secondarily, the Senate, where they are attempting to railroad it through within a week. But the House will take longer. And that's where we really think there are the votes to defeat this. So get involved. Write the letters. Our members at work are on breaks are writing letters to their members. They're making phone calls. They're emailing. You can text to 69866. 69866 and put stop fast track in the message. You'll get on our rapid response team on this issue. That's 69866. Stop fast track.
69. Peter, we can put that up on
tweet that out right
up on our website. And you're meeting with the African American, the Black Caucus of the House today.
Yeah, this afternoon we're meeting with the Black Congressional Caucus. I also spoke 2 weeks ago to the Democratic Caucus. Was invited to the White House to speak to the president before that. So, yeah, it's not just about me. We have tens of thousands of CWAers all over the country running town hall meetings from Omaha, Nebraska to Phoenix, Arizona, all through California. And that's what people can do.
All right. And it's, again, to text is
69866.
69866. Stop.
And the message, put stop TPP or anything like that. We'll get it.
All right, you got it. Hey, Larry, thanks so much for what
My
you're
pleasure.
doing.
Great show. Thanks for all you do here.
All right, thanks for coming in. We'll talk to you again soon, and follow the fight. And I hope you are a part of it. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, 2 hours almost under our belt, ready to move into hour number 3. You remember the drill. You have to wait on Free Speech TV for the delayed broadcast of hour number 3 at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific. But you can continue and watch it live on our video stream, TawkrTV, in the next hour. Congressman Sam Farr represents Monterey, Santa Cruz, Monterey, Carmel, Big Sur. From California will be here in studio with us. He was at the Summit of the Americas with President Obama, and he'll tell us all about it. Hour number 3 coming up. Stay with us on TawkrTV and Free Speech TV.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
should I get by?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is, we're just laughing. Just got somebody tweeted in, Larry Cohen for president. Boy, I'll get on that campaign.
I'll get on that, absolutely.
Yeah, well, he's great leader. President Obama celebrating Earth Day today in style. He's going down to the Florida Everglades, giving what the White House is calling a major speech on climate change, pointing out that the Everglades is just one of the great natural wonders of this world and this country that will be destroyed by rising sea levels. And in fact, Florida, of course, is already experiencing problems with rising sea levels. Every day is going to be at the Everglades National Park. Just a day trip down and back. We'll have more to talk about what he says today on climate change and the actions that he announces when we gather again tomorrow. President back at the White House by 8 o'clock tonight. No briefing today because the president's out of town.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now. Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
2 anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Earth Day 2015, President Obama giving a major speech on climate change in the Everglades. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Good to see you today, Wednesday, April 22nd. Hello, hello, and welcome to this special edition of the Earth Day edition of the Bill Press Show. We are coming to you live from Washington, D.C. in our studio on Capitol Hill. Reaching out to you on your local progressive talk radio station everywhere in this vast and great land of ours. We're also there with you coast to coast on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. Thank you for joining us today. Lots going on. We have the Boston Marathon penalty phase of that trial opening yesterday up in Boston, here in Washington. Senate Democrats and Republicans have finally resolved their differences over the sex trafficking legislation, which means there will be a vote tomorrow on the confirmation of Loretta Lynch as the next Attorney General of the United States. And more protests yesterday in Baltimore, just up the road, over another case of police brutality ending in the death of a young unarmed black man who was chased down by police on April 12th. All that to talk about. And by the way, Fast Track Authority coming up for a vote soon, too, and the president out there stumping for it, and more Democrats lining up against it. Can the president get this done with just Republican votes? So we got so much to talk about here in this hour. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy, Team Press in place. Hello, hello.
Hello there, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, and happy Wednesday, too, to Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. We do the audio part of the show. Cyprian does the video part of the show, and it's a miracle what he's able to do with having so little to work with.
Yeah, his raw materials here are a little rough.
Indeed. Hope to be joined by Charles Ellison from the Philadelphia Tribune and The Root here at the top of the hour to talk about Baltimore. At the half hour, Congressman Sam Farr from California joins us. He was down in Panama with the president for the Summit of the Americas, playing a key role down there, and we will report on what was achieved, what was agreed on, and how it was having the president of Cuba along for the ride in the big historic meeting between President Obama and President Castro of Cuba. We'll get right into it here, dive into it, but first, it's Peter Ogburn.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Congratulations to Sandra Bullock. She has been named People Magazine's 2015 World's Most Beautiful Woman. Seems like kind of an outdated practice, by the way, that People Magazine still does this. They do the World's Sexiest Man and then the World's Most Beautiful Woman. But she won, nonetheless. The big story here is that Sandra Bullock turned 50 this year. So she's 50 years old, and she's on the cover of the latest People magazine as the world's most beautiful woman.
Well, good for her.
Congratulations to her.
Yeah. I cannot believe she's 50.
She's 50. She looks good. She looks good. Big night for Washington, D.C. sports last night. All three major professional teams playing last night. It started off with the Wizards taking on the Toronto Raptors up in Toronto. They won that game in big fashion, 117-106. That puts them at a serious advantage in their playoff series, 2-0 over the Raptors. Also, the Islanders and the Washington Capitals in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Washington Capitals won that game 2-1 in overtime last night, which means that series is now tied 2-2, so they stay alive. And then, of course, last night, the Washington Nationals, right down the street, Bill, they were taking on the Cardinals. Went to the 10th inning when Yunel Escobar hit a walk-off home run to end the game, a win for the Washington Nationals. That makes it 3 for 3.
Whoa.
Basketball, hockey, baseball, all Washington, D.C. teams won last night. Big night for the District.
D.C.
D.C. rising, man.
Coming alive, yeah.
D.C.'s coming up.
We're going to be a sports town like Boston. We keep going.
That's right. Title Town, the new title. Let's win a couple titles here first, and then we'll see. And yesterday, Chipotle had its big earnings call with investors and analysts. A couple big things came out of this call. Number one, Chipotle for the first time reporting $1 billion in earnings for the quarter.
Whoa.
Huge numbers. But even bigger than that, the founder, Steve Ells, announced that they have found a solution to their carnitas shortage. We've talked about the carnitas shortage before because Chipotle is very, very strict on what kind of pork they use in their stores. And they found out that one of their suppliers had violated the store standards of raising pigs in humane conditions without antibiotics and with access to the outdoors. So they shut it down. So there was a carnitas shortage, but again, Steve Ells says we have a solution. Unfortunately, don't look for it anytime soon. He said it's going to be probably until after the summer before they can get all this stuff sorted out and the carnitas back on the menu. But it's okay. It's coming. At least we know it's coming.
They discovered some more pigs
they found
or something?
some other farms that adhere to the Chipotle standards, and we'll be getting our carnitas back.
All right. I'll have to wait.
You're going to wait? You'll be all right?
To get my burrito
You'll be
bowl.
okay?
Yeah.
Got to have the chicken till then.
You can get it with chicken.
Yeah.
Maybe the Hillary Clinton thing had something to do with their big earning.
Might be. Yeah,
You know,
it's
with
good.
her stopping to
Good
Chipotle.
publicity.
Might have been that.
All right. Yes, indeed, there were more protests up in Baltimore yesterday. Residents very alarmed over the death of Freddie Gray at the hands of Baltimore police. 6 officers have been suspended. We talked about this yesterday. But it is yet one more community torn apart by police brutality, and one more example of this real tension that exists in so many communities between police departments and the rest of the community over what seems to be a pattern of abuse, particularly directed against unarmed young black men. Charles Ellison, a good friend of the program, Washington correspondent for the Philadelphia Tribune, contributor for The Root, joins us on our newsline here this morning. Hey, Charles, always good to talk to you, although it always seems there's bad news when we talk, huh?
Hey, Bill, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, what's the latest with this investigation into the death of Freddie Gray, and what's the mood in Baltimore?
So, it seems as though the city of Baltimore and at least the investigation is moving at a fairly quick rate. So, it's you have the suspension of the 6 officers. They've released the names of the officers.
Yep.
So, at least from sort of a high level, not justice, but at least the investigative process seems to be moving swiftly, seems to be moving fairly rapidly compared to previous tragedies like in Ferguson or in Cleveland or in Staten Island and other places. Also, now you have the Justice Department, the federal Justice Department,
yes,
looking into a civil rights probe. So it is Maryland. It's a state that's population-wise is 30% black. Also, it has a very powerful black political establishment in the state of Maryland. The Democratic primary in Maryland is about 50% black. So, they're not going to play around with something like this. So at least you have that. But then there are other aspects of the investigation where there's still a lot of black holes. It's still not clear exactly what happened.
Do we know the 6 officers? Were they? How many of them white, African American? Do we know? I haven't seen that reported anywhere.
I haven't seen that report anywhere too, and that's something I'd like to look into because that brings another element to it, and then it opens up a sort of not just a major sort of national wound or an element of the national debate over police brutality, police violence, but it also opens up some very long-standing tensions that have been in a city like Baltimore, which is a working class town. You've always had these tensions between whites and blacks there, and it's an industrial town. It's also the place where arguably, I know a lot of people talk about Fort Sumter, South Carolina, as the first battle of the Civil War, but actually a lot of historians point to Baltimore. There was actually a clash, the first active clash between secessionists and Union troops was in Baltimore. So, a lot of people, don't realize that sort of, a little bit of history there. So, you have those tensions there, and so people are worried about, depending on the identity of these officers, people are worried about that.
Yeah, and I've seen several comments on that. I mean, Baltimore is a different city than Ferguson, Missouri, where you had the police chief the police department was overwhelmingly white, even though the population was black, or even the North Charleston, South Carolina. Baltimore has a African American mayor, as you say, the political establishment, Elijah Cummings and others there, the former lieutenant governor. And I would imagine that the police force is pretty reflective of the community too, although I don't know that. But the police commissioner himself is black. Right. So
right. Exactly.
How this city deals with it, people are watching. Right. It's a different kind of reality.
Exactly. I mean, it makes a big difference. I've written about this before. I may have talked about it on your show, where the political characteristics of a particular jurisdiction or township or city makes a big difference in these cases. So you see a big difference in places like Baltimore or even North Charleston or even Brooklyn. Where you have black congressmen, you have a very powerful black political presence. In Maryland, you've got a black mayor, and you've also got black Congressman Elijah Cummings. I'm very curious to see how this case will disrupt or influence the upcoming Senate race in Maryland, which there's some racial tensions there as well. Because you've got a couple of black Senate candidates for that open U.S. Senate seat. A lot of folks within Maryland have been saying, hey, it's time. We've got a very heavy African-American presence in the state. African-American vote here is influential. It's time that we get a black senator. So I'm wondering if this will become sort of a political tipping point that will dramatically influence that race or mobilize the black vote, at least in that state, because you don't just have people in Baltimore talking about it, but you have people like I'm a resident of Prince George's County, Maryland, and people are talking about that, and people in Prince George's County, Maryland, have dealt with police violence, police brutality issues before, but you always notice it's handled rather differently. You still have the same issues, but because once again the political characteristics and the demographics tend to shape the conversation and the debate.
Now, there's serious questions. One of the things the mayor has been talking about is why did they pursue Freddie Gray in the first place? And he was found with a switchblade, but that's not necessarily a crime. Why did they pursue him? And how is it that while the police department insists still, I believe, that no force was used, he was arrested, they said, without force or incident, and yet his spinal cord is 80% severed?
Right.
I mean, there had to have been, some excessive use of force there, which cost him his life.
Exactly. I mean, you don't just walk around and then suddenly your spinal cord. I mean, this is a healthy 25-year-old young black male. I mean, seems to be in fairly good shape. You don't just suddenly lose the ability. You don't just suddenly lose your spinal cord or your spinal cord.
And the video of they're dragging him into the police van. I mean, they were literally dragging him in, and his legs were dragging behind him. I mean, it looks to me like he was already injured at that point.
Right.
What do we know?
That's what folks are saying and trying to determine here. Another thing is that there seem to be indications that Freddie Gray was whatever they were responding to. Gray really didn't have anything to do with it. He just happened to be it was sort of at the wrong place at the wrong time. Just seemed to run. And that's kind of like I grew up in North Philly, and sometimes I've seen stuff like that happen where you see police come and then. Just growing up as a kid, you run because you're like, police have a reputation. Big city police, like in Baltimore, they have a reputation. So Gray probably was like, oh no, I'm at the wrong place. I don't need to be here. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And ran it. It just so happened that he was within arm's reach of an officer. So that's going to make it if more of that information or intelligence comes out that shows that Gray really, he wasn't involved in anything, and that's pretty irrefutable, then that's going to make the tensions even worse there in Baltimore. And you know, especially when you look at, a lot of people, one thing that's going to influence the national discussion on what's happening in Baltimore, obviously people are going to start looking back at reruns of The Wire. So, and The Wire, and that was one of the reasons why former Governor Martin O'Malley was just incensed by that program and just never forgave the creators of that show because it was so accurate. It was so real. When you talk to a lot of folks in Baltimore or Maryland about Baltimore and how the police operates, that's a great show to watch. And so, I mean, it was like a documentary. So it's people are going to look at that. They're going to, and that's probably one of the reasons why Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake is frustrated because she feels that the police are kind of stonewalling on a lot of the information, and that's perhaps true. It's probably the Baltimore police isn't being really all that transparent with her.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, I've got to tell you, it's a very serious situation, but they are, as you say, things are moving a lot faster than did in certainly other cases as well. Hey, Charles, always good to talk to you. Thank you. Remind people you can follow Charles on Twitter at Ellison Report, and also follow us right at theroot.com. Thanks, Charles, for being with us.
All right, fellas. Hey, listen, take care. Have a good one.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Back shortly here on the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, you got it. 26 minutes after the hour on a Wednesday, April 22nd. Congressman Sam Farr from California joins us in the next segment here in studio with us. Big news up from Boston yesterday. The penalty phase of the trial of Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev got underway. The prosecution opened up with a photo taken by the surveillance camera of 2 years ago when Tsarnaev had just been arrested. He was in a holding cell waiting to be interrogated, and he looks at the surveillance camera knowing they are watching him and flips the bird in an act of defiance and showing that he had no remorse nor regret for what he had done. And now the jury faces a decision. The only decision left is everybody knows he's guilty. Even his defense attorneys argue that. Should he get the death penalty or life in prison without parole? Interesting that the victims and families of the victims are split. Here is Liz Norden. She had 2 sons, each of whom lost a leg in that Boston Marathon bombing.
I want it more now than before. I just think he's a monster.
She wants the death penalty. Brayton Shanley, gentleman himself, was wounded in the attack on the other side.
The death penalty is unnatural, it's outdated, and it's ineffective. So we stand against that futility, the wrongness of that.
How would you vote? I'll tell you how I would vote. It seems to me it's pretty clear. That if anybody deserved the death penalty, ever did, he did. But if you're against the death penalty, you are against it, period. No exceptions, and no exceptions in this case either for Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. But life in prison without parole is a fate worse than death.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I see dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 33 minutes after the hour on a great big Wednesday, April 22nd, Earth Day. How about it? It is the Bill Press Show. We are coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill. Brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, the good men and women teachers of America. Members of the AFT under President Randy Weingarten, making a difference in the classrooms of America every day. You bet. You can find out more about their good work at their website, aft.org. President Obama last week down in Panama for the summit of the Americas, historic meeting with President Raul Castro from Cuba. And there with the president, as a member of the congressional delegation, Congressman Sam Farr, good friend of the program, representing the 20th Congressional District of California, which the congressman might tell you, but I certainly will tell you, is, I think, the most beautiful congressional district of all 435. Hello, Congressman. Nice to see you.
Phil, thank you. What a nice introduction.
It is, isn't it?
Truth is always the best defense.
I mean, if you take Santa Cruz, Monterey, Carmel, Big Sur.
Yeah, and the Salinas Valley. Incredible.
And the Salinas Valley.
Steinbeck country.
Who's going to compete with that?
I think the Hawaiians try, but...
I don't think you're going to let them have that one without a fight, Congressman. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and you know, San Francisco's beautiful and Seattle's beautiful, but that coastline is...
But we have it all because we have just incredible people there and a great diversity. You know, California is such an exciting state, I think all because of the gold rush. When you think about it, people from every culture in the world just abandoned whatever they're doing, took these huge risks, rushed to California, and stayed.
Right. Now, one of the most interesting things about your district, which I rediscovered when we were talking about Jerry Brown putting these restrictions, 25% restrictions on water use in California, is what a huge percentage of American crops come from California, number one, and particularly your district.
California is the number one ag state in the nation. It is, we produce about 50 crops that no other state produces. And for example, everybody knows all the almonds and pistachios come from California. But almost 50% of all the food that's eaten in America comes from California.
And your district, particularly the specialty crops.
Specialty crops, which is all the stuff that's in a salad bowl.
Yeah.
Celery and lettuce and broccoli and all those things. We're the capital of that. We produce 70% of that. Brussels sprouts, artichokes.
Strawberries.
Wine grapes.
And
lots of wine grapes, more than Napa and Sonoma.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the reason we're going to beat them in the wine world because they've got good wines and we've got good wines, but we got whales. They don't have those.
That'll put you over the top. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I've been to Napa many times. I've never seen a whale there. Now, what impact? So, first of all, how serious is this drought in California, and what impact will this 25% restrictions have?
Well, the drought is very serious. I mean, when you know that the Sierras are our storage area for storing all the water in snow, and we didn't get any snow, so we have no storage, and we use the water up during the spring and summer, and then late in the fall, we just have nowhere to turn except all that melting snow, and it won't be there. Our reservoirs are at record low levels, and it's very serious. 25% is a great number. Our communities feel pushed by that because we're way past that. We have the lowest per capita water use in California in the Monterey Bay area. We've had that since 1978. We've retrofitted everything. We've saved tons of water. You know what the interesting thing is? You measure how much water is being saved by the sewage treatment plant because they're not getting the water. They're getting the waste, but they're not getting the water with the waste because of the cutbacks. So you have these excess capacities in treatment plants, which can be used to treat more wastewater and all the other kinds.
No, I saw the numbers. I don't remember them right now, but like Palm Springs, they use like 400 or 500 gallons a day. In San Francisco, like 100 gallons a day per person, right? Mm-hmm. And you're probably way down below that.
Oh yeah, we're down to about 40 gallons per day per person, and I think we can go lower.
Right. Now the criticism of so are people going to feel the impact of this 25%?
We've done it over a number of years, and I think people have to get in the conscience of how much water is wasted. Just shaving in the morning, leaving the faucet on, brushing your teeth, leaving the faucet on.
Right.
How many times you flush the toilet when you don't need to. Those are kinds of things. You end up just making a habit to sort of turn off the faucet between brushes and not flush the toilet all the time. And if you're going to do a load of laundry or dishes, you just do it when it's full. And you don't run it as much. So those are kinds of things, and then you retrofit
that
with
people
the toilet.
Get into. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can really, you can do it.
And the kind of planting you do around the house,
and too. Agriculture gets a big hit on this because they consume much water, but agriculture is really getting smart because it costs them to buy water. It's not free. And pumping charges are based on energy charges. So what they're doing is getting all this technology to put in the ground to essentially only feed things when they're hungry. So you don't just feed like, I think rule of thumb, you and I are hobbyist gardeners, it's an inch of water a week per plant. Well, that's just an old wives' tale. It is not based on whether that plant needs water and how much it needs. And you can give it a couple of drops a day and it may be sufficient.
Well, that has been the rap against the governor's plan, which is that he left agriculture. It affects residents and businesses, but does not affect agriculture.
Well, it gets very complicated because agriculture is growing where the water is. Obviously, it's not all as Mojave Desert. It's not in agriculture. In Southern California, it's not all in agriculture because there's no water there. So you plant where the water is, and that doesn't mean if you save that water by not planting that it's going to be somewhere else. So it isn't like you just pick it up and transfer it someplace else. We don't have the infrastructure for that.
But they are using water more efficiently?
Oh, they have to, yes, for all kinds of reasons, mostly cost. And because there isn't water there to buy. A lot of it's complicated with agriculture because you have all these water contracts, the Central Valley. But remember the Coast Marin where you're from and Monterey County, all those coastal counties, we don't get any water from anywhere else. Mm-hmm. The coasts of California live off the rain that comes to the coastal mountains.
Yeah.
And a few of them, Santa Barbara and others, are plugged in. But mostly the only place we can turn to is the ocean. That's the next stop.
All right. So in terms of desalinization, I guess.
And I think, frankly, if we get better use of our water through just good engineering and planning and pipelines and ground storage, we can get through these droughts.
All right. So California will survive.
Needs money.
You were down in Panama with the president. Historic meeting, right? What was accomplished there? What was the mood? And are we paying enough attention to Latin America? There's so many questions I've got about it.
Well, it's interesting segue. First of all, Panama survives because of water, rainwater. That's how the canal works. It fills the lakes, and the lakes, they dump every time a ship goes through there. They dump multi-millions of gallons of fresh water into the ocean. And they do 50 ships a day, 365 days a year. It's an incredible man-made, wonder of the world, that Panama Canal and the expansion. But the summit was fascinating. First of all, you're right. We don't pay enough attention to Latin America. All we hear about are all the negative things. Did you know that Mexico's the 10th largest GDP in the world and going to surpass Canada and France? I mean, here we are. Our neighbor.
Mexican economy.
Yeah.
No,
and it's our biggest trading partner. For California's number one trading partner. Canada's number one for the whole country, but Mexico's number two, and I think Japan, others are down there 3 or 4. Depends on what you're exporting. But Brazil is so big, becoming a world power. The one thing we have in common, the whole hemisphere, 35 countries, 35 presidents came to Panama, and for the first time, as you mentioned, Cuba. And everybody in the family wanted Cuba there. The United States is the only one that's had a blockade against Cuba. It hasn't had diplomatic relations with Cuba, and so on. So all the other countries and all of these summits, there's been 7 of them, have asked the United States, give up your crazy policy. It doesn't work. It's stupid, and we want Cuba to be part of this hemispheric family, because the only way we can really get this hemisphere solidified is if everybody is on equal terms. And every one of these countries has a democratically elected governor, a president, a democracy, except Cuba, and we're working towards that. So they were there. Everybody was excited about it. They were talking about all of the possibilities of working together and eliminating poverty. I mean, I thought it was essentially kind of a Peace Corps agenda of economic development, really aiming towards how do you eliminate the root causes of poverty. And it's a healthy thing to be talking about. None of our countries are warring against each other. We speak in the hemisphere, you can get along in 4 languages. You can't do that in any other hemisphere. Mm-hmm. So it's a real positive note for the future that and the one thing that I'd like to see us pull together is everybody, and everybody has all kinds of resources to produce electrons. If we could create a grid, and we're working on it, a grid from North to South America and vice versa. Everybody can input their electrons by whatever way they have, solar, hydro, fossil fuel, whatever it is, and we could all have the lowest energy costs in the world, savings to eliminating poverty.
I mean, there could be, I guess, the equivalent of European Union for the Americas, right?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we'd have to tear down, we don't have walls between European countries, and we'd have to tear down the walls, but I think we can get there. We bring up the economy of Mexico. There's over 1 million Americans living in Mexico. There's Americans moving to Medellin, Colombia, which was the murder capital of the world, now one of the hot places to live. I mean, things are changing so rapidly in Latin America, and us in North America don't really understand that, and we don't pay any attention to it.
I remember once I was in, I forget, maybe Costa Rica, maybe Nicaragua, but and that point was made to me when I said something like, well, I'm an American, and whoever I was talking to said,
so am I.
Yeah, so am I. I'm an American, too. Wow. And it made me think.
We're all Americans.
Exactly.
We're North Americans, South Americans, Central Americans. But we're all Americans. And we all have a common history, which is interesting. Speaking of Nicaragua, and I know you spent time there, when you think about all these kids fleeing the poorest countries, and Nicaragua is one of the poorest, they're not coming from Nicaragua. Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, but none from Nicaragua, or very few from Nicaragua. Why? Because Nicaragua has a much more stabilized rural environment, where there is law enforcement that is not so corrupt, and opportunities for people in the rural areas to get ahead. So they don't flee, they don't have the violence in the rural areas that they have in the other countries.
Congressman Sam Farr from California. So California water and the Americas, the promise of the Americas, and the reality maybe we're not aware of. Your questions, your comments, welcome. Jump in, join the conversation. 866-55-PRESS here on the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies in Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 11 minutes before the top of the hour, Wednesday, April 22nd. President Obama on his way to the Everglades today to mark Earth Day by talking about climate change. And the White House says will be a major speech with some major new initiatives on the issue of climate change. Which that's one issue that isn't getting a lot of attention in this Congressman Sam Farr from California here with us.
Nothing constructive is being dealt with in Congress. We're inventing our wars inside Congress and then spending our time debating them. You know, like whether there is global warming instead of fixing it, or whether we ought to allow Cuba into the hemispheric family. All kinds of stuff that is not relevant to reality. Congress is just
doing nothing, right?
Not cost effective. They ought to have a GAO report on Congress effectiveness and wonder whether it's a waste of taxpayers' money.
We know how that report would turn out. Well, one of the things we've talked about, I want to ask you about Cuba. One of the things we've talked about is that there were so many demands, particularly Republicans, about the authorization for the use of military force against ISIS. And then finally, the president last October said, okay, I don't think I need it, but let's do it. I'd love to have that authorization from this Congress. And since then, nothing has happened.
No.
We have this war going on against ISIS, and no declaration of war or no debate in Congress and no nothing.
We begin our markups today in appropriations bill. We mark up the water and energy bill and the MILCON and the Veterans Affairs bills. And what we're marking up are bills that are cutting, squeezing, and trimming those departments. And it's just outrageous. We don't need to do that. But this idea that we just got to cut government until it dies is the mantra, on the Hill, and it's not solving problems. I don't know where the lack of ability to make tough decisions to solve problems. That's what we got elected to do.
Yeah, but a lot of people, they come here to destroy government, at least the Tea Party people, rather than make it work. I do have to ask you about Cuba, because you've been there several times, and you were one of the chief ones that went down and helped secure the release of Alan Gross from the prison there. This embargo we've had for over 50 years, been a disastrous policy. Time to change?
Oh, yes. And I think your Republicans are seeing that it's just a failed policy, and let's get rid of it, even though they may not they don't embrace anything that the Castro brothers have been able to accomplish. Many of us think this social revolution there was absolutely essential in poor countries. They've given everybody in the island access to education and access to health care, something we haven't still done in this country. And I think those things ought to be applauded. We got to move. They're violating human rights issues and things like that. But I think you engage people in dialogue. Whenever there's controversy, you at least want to be talking. That's how we negotiate labor contracts, negotiate treaties, negotiate relationships. To just have an isolationist attitude that no matter what, we're not going to allow American people to go there, bring things back from Cuba. If you go there illegally and spend American dollars, you can get fined, and it's just ridiculous. It hasn't accomplished one thing. And we have all these farmers. Farm Bureau wants to open up relations. The Chamber of Commerce wants to open up relationships. Right. Everybody wants to open up relationships except Cuban Americans, who left the island after the revolution.
Mm-hmm. And are still fighting Fidel Castro.
Still fighting. I want my house back. They're not going to get their house back.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, Carol and I are going down next month to Cuba, and so we'll fix it.
You will. You'll have. I know you've been there before, and you will be amazed at the amount of change that people have done in a really abject poverty. They just don't have any money, but the ingenuity of Cubans to fix things up and to try to find now that they can do a little private capital venture in their homes with these restaurants and other kinds of sales, renting old cars for tours, and being taxis and things like that.
No, can't wait to get back. I know it's going to change. So, Congressman, you got a lot of work to do today. We'll let you get back to work. Thank you for stopping by today.
Well, it's always a pleasure, Bill. Let's keep this program going. It's great.
Thanks for your good work in California and nationwide, and we will see you again soon.
All right.
I'll be back, wrap things up with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, just a quick word about the penalty phase of the trial for the Boston Marathon bomber. The question that's kind of dividing Boston right now is whether or not he should get the death penalty. Some of the families, victims of families, are saying he should. Some are saying he shouldn't. It seems to me it's pretty clear. If anybody deserved the death penalty, certainly you could say he did. And yet, if you're against the death penalty, you are against the death penalty, period, with no exceptions, because it is just morally wrong. And we hope that's the way the jury goes. Hey, folks, have a great Wednesday. We'll see you back here again tomorrow.
This is the Bill Press Show.